Dark Fringe Radio, your premier source for the paranormal, conspiracy theory, and true crime.
Coming to you live from the Mistopheles Studios, it's Dark Fringe Radio.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us on another edition of Dark Fringe Radio. This is episode 102, and thanks for joining us on another episode. And tonight we have a very special guest, Jay. Tonight we're going to be talking to Mark Anthony. He's the
famous Latin musician.
No, not that guy.
Huge fan. I know I get judged all the time.
No, but the psychic lawyer, the psychic, he is the psychic expedition guy. He goes out and really goes out to these really cool places and like Machu Picchu and these really magical places, Jay, that a lot of people have life-changing experiences at. And it's really cool. And tonight we're going to be talking to him and all the work that he's done. This is we're going to be talking about his third book, which is called The Afterlife Frequency, and it's a really cool book. And he actually sent me a copy here, Jay, and
I like it.
Signed by him. I actually read the whole book. I put my high school level education at work, Atlantic High School there, Delray Beach. There you go. And
we didn't so much as graduate as much as survive.
Yeah. Hey, listen, that's how it was. You survive. But that's just such as life. But nonetheless, we had a great discussion regarding his newest book, and then a lot of the content about the book, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I really wanted to get into the intro first, of course, Jay, and talk about how people can listen to the podcast. Real simple stuff. You can go to our website. I preach it all the time every week. It's darkfringeradio.com. You go straight there to our website, right there at the bottom, the link right there. All the episodes are there. Over 100 episodes for you guys to watch for free. I don't know how else. I mean, Jay, is there even 100 episodes of G.I. Joe? I don't think so, right? I think we have more episodes than G.I. Joe. I think we may have more episodes than Transformers. I think Transformers ran for 4 years, right?
3 seasons in the original run.
Oh, there you go. See, I was not that far off. I knew it was a short amount of seasons. Yeah. I don't know how many episodes per season.
First season was awesome.
Yeah.
Second season was awesome-er.
And then third season,
they made a movie.
Oh.
And the movie was fantastic.
Right.
But the series after
it just went down.
That was where it died.
Yeah. So look, I mean, we have even more episodes than that available for you to watch for free.
Prime.
Exactly.
Oh, YouTube and.
Yeah, you don't know the depth of our catalog, but please, we've been in this game for years. All right. But yeah, listen, darkfringeradio.com, real simple. You can go there, check out all the episodes. The latest episodes at the bottom on our YouTube, so you can watch it right there and actually see the video of the actual episodes. So yeah, please enjoy it. We encourage you guys to go there all the time. We have stuff dropping there every day. Literally, Jay, yesterday we just dropped the latest episode, or not episode, but the latest trailer for Halloween Kills, which is the second installment of their recreation of the Halloween series. And it's pretty intense, Jay. It's it's coming out October 15th on all streaming platforms and of course theaters as well. I don't know, Jay, you wanna make your way out to the theater and see that one?
No.
No. Bro, it looks intense. It looks intense.
Here's the thing. I'm not into the horror movies.
I know you're not. I know.
It's not about being scared. It really is about being kind
unprepared.
Because it just none of that shit. Like, really, if I were to see Jason or Mike Myers, or you name them, I mean, at the end of the day, for the most part, they're people. You stand a fair chance. Kruger's the only one I don't fuck with because my subconscious.
That's a whole nother spectrum of things.
That's a whole nother deal. All the rest, I kind of sit there and go, okay. I remember we went to that Shaka-Rama. I fell asleep.
Yeah. Well, those by no means. Listen.
Well, those were definitely.
Again, we were watching the Amityville Horror, the original one. which was just a fucking
terrible,
a snoozer of a fucking Jesus Christ. And then what was the second one that we watched after that?
Well, I thought the first one was wasn't the first one House on the Haunted Hill with Vincent Price?
Yes, you're absolutely right.
That was a good one.
And that was good. It was older. It was like 20 years older. Yeah, which is crazy, right? You would think the older film would be the more fucking snoozier of the two, right?
You would think.
It was it was the older one that actually held up better.
Amityville was a fucking snooze.
Yeah, I mean, it had its parts, but yeah, it was a lot of dead parts in that movie. So
now, I will tell you this, Will. I will give you this.
What's that?
If A Nightmare on Elm Street comes out, whether it's the Shakarama or big screen or something like that, that I would do.
You might be eating your words pretty soon. You know that, right?
I do. I know there's one. I know that it's process. I know there's talks.
You might be eating your words pretty soon. I don't know what next month is their special. I know what this month's special is, which is actually this coming weekend, which I won't be able to make. I'm actually going to be at a soccer game in Doral this Saturday, but nonetheless, Saturday they also have a double feature, which is I think it's the Nightmare on Elm Street. No, not Nightmare on Elm Street. Excuse me. Return of the Living Dead, the second part, and Night of the Creeps, which is another film. Yeah,
classic.
Yeah, it's a classic. So that's what they have going on this weekend. I don't know what next month's going to bring, Jay. So you might be fucking, I don't know. You might be.
I was going to go. Last time I was in there, I was ready to go. And I don't remember. We ended up having a schedule conflict, but I was ready.
Yeah, you were. But maybe, hey, not of course this weekend, but maybe next time we'll get out there again and do a, on location at Shakarama. That would be really cool. I'm sure people will really appreciate that as well. Too, especially, awesome. Yeah, next month is, October. So it's hey, also Fright Nights at the fairgrounds. I wanted to see if maybe you wanted to come with us. Maybe you bring little Jay. We could all go together, see some haunted houses and shit. It'd be kind of fun.
Okay. Those things always get me in trouble, but I'm down.
Yeah. Hey, listen, it'll be fun, bro. Hey, we'll talk about that off air. But nonetheless.
Yeah, this is the longest intro
ever. And of course, you can check us out and our social media at Dark Fringe Radio and YouTube at Dark Fringe Radio. So make sure you please go there, like, and subscribe. That's a really big thing for us. We're really trying to push that YouTube frontier to the mainstream. So whatever you can do to push that and help us out, would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing that. So again, Jay, that's pretty much it for the intro. I wanted to get right into What the F Florida Man. So what did you have this week, Jay, for What the F Florida Man?
Well, I have a treat, William.
Uh-oh.
Because apparently last week I retold a story.
You did.
And
we didn't know.
I didn't realize.
Yeah, we didn't know.
Actually, what I think happened was I think that was back in the day. Will, you also used to bring a What the Florida Man. I think that was one you brought that we didn't. We kind of skimmed over. I'm pretty sure.
I will bring evidence on the next episode of Dark Fringe Radio.
All right. That's cool. Let's do that.
You forget I am the architect of Dark Fringe Radio. No, I remember everything. It is implanted into this brain. Even as much THC that may run through this brain.
I'm right there with you. But I'm pretty sure. It'll be interesting.
Game
Folks,
on.
listen up to that.
Game on.
Story number one.
Here we go.
Story number one. Florida man arrested on allegations he used COVID relief funds to buy a Lamborghini.
Wow. Yay. Nothing but taking advantage of the system and getting the money and using that to buy a goddamn Lamborghini. Wow.
Yep.
Let me guess, out of Miami.
Of course it's out of Miami. Where else is anybody? The people that buy Lamborghinis in Boca or in Jupiter pay cash.
They have the money for it, actually. Yeah.
No, in Miami, it's all cocaina.
Or something else like this.
Or something like this.
Yeah.
Florida man is facing several charges after authorities said he used the COVID relief funds to buy a Lamborghini and bank millions of dollars.
Shit.
David Hines is being charged with 1 count of bank fraud, 1 count of making false statements to a financial institution, and 1 count of engaging in transactions with unlawful proceedings. Basically, what this guy did was he said he was cashing payroll checks that he wasn't, got millions of PPP monies, went out, bought himself a 2019 Lamborghini Huracan, and then got his ass thrown in jail.
Well, yeah, and just for in case if you guys don't know what Jay the hell is talking about, there was a government relief program where people could apply for PPP loans and funds, which was for small businesses, where you could go in and basically get loans at no payback at all. I mean, you didn't even have to pay this shit back at all, Jay. And I guess this guy did it to the tunes of millions. And listen.
And he got tossed in jail.
Exactly. Listen. Uncle Sam starts snooping around and he starts finding out you're hanging out with a Lamborghini Huracan, riding up and down South Beach. Your ass is gonna get caught.
There's funny to see some problems in your life, son.
Yeah, I don't understand why people think like they're gonna get away with shit like that, especially when you spend the money on shit like that. It's so apparent, or what?
There are other people that are. The scary thought is how many people are doing it that aren't getting caught.
Right. Yeah.
But yes, you're right. If you're going to steal millions of dollars, you don't go live above your means. Right. You just know that your bills are paid.
But yes, listen, you're right. I mean, what you're saying is true because from the ones we don't catch, or with the ones we do catch, imagine the ones we don't catch. But South Florida is rot full of schemes and scams like this, Jay. Listen, I've been in the finance.
Hustler's paradise, baby.
I've been in the finance business for 20 years, Jay. Let me tell you, and I've been through the mortgage crisis in 2008, where everybody crashed in 2008. I've been through all that. I've been 8 years before that, all the way up until maybe about 10 years ago. I saw it all. I saw people doing all kinds of crazy shit, Jay.
I don't doubt it.
Oh, it's crazy. You have to have a little bit of morality too, because no matter what, you eventually get caught. Your name gets caught in some kind of bullshit because your name is attached to something. You signed off on something because that's how the mortgage business was. And even now, these people are trying to take advantage of the PPP loans because of the coronavirus. I mean, that's just fucked up. I mean,
terrible.
There's people that are actually dying. You know what I mean? That could use those funds for something, maybe to find a better place to find treatment or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean?
Not for nothing, but yes, you're 100% right. Those funds should be going to people that deserve them, not people who just want to look really good on Saturday. Yeah.
Really horrible, Jay. But listen, thanks for giving us that what the F, Florida man. Yeah.
Wait.
What do we got,
There's
Jay?
More.
Oh, there's more.
Since I told the bad one last week, I prepared a second one.
Oh, a makeup
this
one.
Week.
Nice.
Florida man hospitalized after iguana runs into bike, causing crash.
Listen, that could happen anywhere in Florida right now, even my backyard. I mean, it's ridiculous iguana season right now. Oh,
and they're big.
Yes, they're huge. But just to give you guys a comparison. These iguanas are probably the size of a small dog, Jay. Some of them easily, right? Yeah, easily the size of a Chihuahua, right?
Yeah.
With an extended tail of an extra size of a dog.
Those tails are nasty, man.
Yeah.
Those tails will mess you up.
Oh, exactly. So let's hear the story, Jay.
So a 60-year-old marathon man, so it's down the Keys.
Yeah.
Required stitches on Thursday after an iguana ran into the front of his bicycle, causing him to crash. Now, obviously, no one really got seriously injured. He fell. God. But what caused the crash, and there's a picture of it, and I suggest, friends, you Google this.
Oh, I'm going to find it. It's going to be on here. Don't worry.
There's an iguana
And the spokes
in
all
the
mangled?
front wheel.
Oh yeah.
So it ran into the front wheel right between the fork and is stuck between the wheel and the brake. So that thing literally ran up into the wheel, and he went.
Oh. So he took the worst possible hit that he could take as an iguana,
Absolutely.
basically. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I would have just taken a fucking bump to the side and gone off to the side of the road to the weeds and okay, I'm good. You know, now this guy went through the whole ringer, huh? Oof. Well, listen, it'll be on. Don't worry. I'll find the picture.
Find that picture because it's fucking hilarious. There's just this iguana laying the fork. Just
listen. And poor guy just bicycling along in Key West, you know?
Like Kermit the Frog.
Chilling out, you know, all of a sudden, yeah, Kermit the Frog comes splashing out. Goes right through your fork of the frame of your bike. Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, that's Florida, of course, for you. And Jay, thank you for
that's Florida Man.
Yeah, exactly right. That's what Florida Man for you. Again, Jay, I just wanted to remind everybody tonight, our interview with Mark Anthony, the psychic laureate explorer. You know, Jay, we've had him on the podcast here a couple times before. He's been on for his prior books that he had, Never Letting Go and Evidence of Eternity. Now he has his third book coming out, which is called Afterlife Frequency. Sent me the copy of the book, Jay. I got it about a week and a half before we actually had the interview. I can tell you, Jay, really insightful stuff. He kind of like breaks everything down about how things work in the afterlife, how the whole transition of life once we die, when we go to the afterlife, how that all kind of works out. But he kind of throws like real world stories into all these little transitions that he goes through when it comes to talking about that. And, you know, it kind of breaks down how our soul has transitioned into the afterlife. Also, another acronym he comes with is RAFT. And that's how we recognize when we see these things sometimes, Jay. We have these conversations sometimes, and I'm going to get kind of off topic here, but it's not really off topic, but it's kind of a sidebar thing. You know, sometimes, Jay, we talk about how sometimes we feel certain things.
Yeah.
We feel certain spirits.
Yeah.
Right. We talk about these experiences. So he's actually developed a acronym called RAFT, and it's an acronym for us to be able to recognize, affirm, and figure out, and then get into how we can see these things, take these things as messages, and maybe affirm them in some way. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times we get these messages and we don't know what they mean. You know what I mean? Either would it be in a dream or a song or a smell, a sound, something that somebody says, and you're like, oh shit, you know, that's what so-and-so said, you know, a lot of the time. So, you know, there's just all these things, these signs, and he's come up with a system and all these acronyms for people to really, you know, discern them and help develop their kind of own psychic being, you know what I mean? As a normal person. And, you know, and it's also a grieving, you know, tool and technique, because a lot of times, you know, when we grieve and we lose somebody that we love, it's hard for us to move on. A lot of, I'm sure you've seen it in some people, but I've seen people where when they lose somebody, they kind of get stuck in their own kind of personal hell. You know what I'm saying? They don't leave it, and they just kind of stay perpetually in that thing, and they just can't get out of it. You know what I mean? It's, you know, enough time has passed, but they just can't get out of it, you know? So there's a lot of those things that we talk about and that in this book. And it's just, I think, a really good way for someone to kind of maybe structure these thoughts that are coming into their mind. But nonetheless, a great book. We're going to be getting into that with Mr. Mark Anthony here, the Psychic Laureate Explorer. And I hope you guys enjoy the episode here coming up. So thank you so much.
Hi, this is Tammy Merhab Chavez of Hollyweird Paranormal Podcast, and you're listening to Dark Fringe Radio.
Very good. Very good. Well, listen, thank you again for joining us on another edition for Dark Fringe Radio. I am your host, Will Martinez, and tonight we have a very special guest. Of course, he's here with us tonight, Mr. Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer, the psychic explorer. We've had him here a couple times on the podcast. Thank you for coming back on. Mark, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Will. It's great being here. And, we were talking before we went on the air is you had me on 5 years ago when my last book, Evidence of Eternity, launched. And here I am on the eve of my new book, The Afterlife Frequency, getting to launch. So I think this is a good sign, Will. Yeah.
And it's so funny that you say that. A lot about this book that you've come out with that I've read, and thank you for sending me a copy. It's right here. Wonderful book, by the way. Very easy read. It's not difficult. It takes very little time, but a lot of great information, Mark. And, we were just talking about that, the synchronicity of 5 years. Synchronicities play a big part in this book, don't they?
Does. Yeah, because see, one of the reasons I wrote this, and thank you for saying it's an easy read with a lot of information.
Yes.
Because, my work as an attorney, what I had to take very, very complicated concepts,
right,
and be able to present it to a jury. Now, juries aren't stupid, okay? They're intelligent people, but they're not used to the legal terminology, the legalese, or if the case involved a lot of forensics or medical terminology, you got to put it in a way that people can understand it. And let me tell you, taking the quantum physics and figuring a way to write that in everyday language, there was one day, Will, I was trying to understand space-time. And the thing is, because on the other side, on what I call the afterlife frequency, there's no time. And quantum physicists believe that when you get to the quantum level, because everything's made of molecules, which are made of atoms, which are made of electrons, protons, and neutrons, which in turn are made of the smallest particle, quantum physics. That's where that comes from. That because everything's pure energy, past, present, future are all happening simultaneously. So I'm trying to understand this and then how to explain this. And man, I was getting ready to start just pulling chunks of my hair out. I mean, I was like, and so I was taking a break and I was just a little web surfing, and all of a sudden a quote from Werner Heisenberg comes up. And Heisenberg is one of the founders of quantum physics. I mean, his friends were Albert Einstein and Max Planck. What does that tell you?
Yeah, exactly.
And he said, when you think you understand quantum physics, you really don't. And I started laughing because it's like, okay, I felt so much better about myself.
Yeah, and then another theory comes into play and then throws everything out the window what you thought, right?
It does. Like one of the scientists who endorsed this book, and I'm very honored. And
yes, I was actually going to get into him about the foreword by Dr. Gary Schwartz.
Yeah, Dr. Gary Schwartz is such an amazing guy, and I just have total admiration for him. And one of the other scientists who endorsed this was Dr. Dean Radin, who's the chief scientist of the Institute of Noetic Sciences. And we were talking about quantum physics, and he said, he goes, you get a bunch of us in a room together, a bunch of physicists, nobody can agree on anything, because it's such an exciting field.
Right.
I think for a lot of people, that show The Big Bang Theory, they were poking fun at physicists and all that.
I've learned more about quantum physics from that show alone than I've ever learned in my entire life.
Exactly. I'd watch it and then I'd go look some of the stuff up, and obviously the writers, they're giving terminology and stuff. But physics is such an exciting frontier in science, because it really does explain everything. Everything.
Yes, it does.
And that's the reason I wrote this book, is because I was an inquisitive kid.
Right.
I became an inquisitive teenager, then I became an inquisitive lawyer. And I believe that there is, and also being a psychic medium, and so I've been talking to dead people, my whole life, and my parents were as well.
Right.
So, and my dad was a Navy SEAL and a NASA engineer. And I remember Dad telling me once, he said, Mark, nothing is impossible. If you put enough money and research into something, you can figure out anything. And Will, that really stuck with me. And so I wrote this book because I believe that there is a logical, rational explanation for everything. And that includes the afterlife, that includes mediumship, that is communicating with spirits, that includes near-death experiences, shared death experiences, deathbed visions, visitations when spirits come and connect with people who aren't necessarily mediums. There is a logical explanation for everything. And the key to that is quantum physics.
Yeah, it's so funny that you say that, because it makes perfect sense why you'd be the perfect person to write a book like this. You had the upbringing of having the mediumistic side, and also having that structured military style based, finding all the real evidence, science based, things that you can put, answers to, and mix them together. And that's what this book does in a lot of ways. Because there's one particular concept that you talk about, and that's EMS, and that's a really interesting concept. I'm fascinated by that. And could you tell my listeners a little bit about that?
Yeah, the EMS, it stands for electromagnetic soul. And since the dawn of history, philosophers have pondered the nature of consciousness. Philosophers, sociologists, refer to who and what we are, our sense of self, as consciousness. People of faith refer to this as the soul or the spirit. And so the debate about, does the brain create consciousness, or did consciousness pre-exist the brain? Well, then, fast forward into the modern era, and neuroscience is the study of the human brain. And neuroscientists believe that the brain creates consciousness based on chemical reactions and electrical impulses, but they can't explain how. And I was having this discussion with Eben Alexander, the Harvard neurosurgeon who had a near-death experience. And he said, Mark, you go to a textbook in medical school about the brain, and there'll be 900 pages on functions of the brain and maybe a paragraph of consciousness, because neuroscientists have absolutely no idea what causes consciousness. And we know from faith, people of faith believe that the soul pre-exists the body, comes into the body, and then leaves the body at death. We know from the laws of thermodynamics and physics that energy is neither created nor destroyed, only transferred from one form to another. We also know that the brain operates on electromagnetic energy. So it came to me one day when I was working and researching, it's the electromagnetic soul. And that's a 21st century term that combines both faith and science. And so when Dr. Gary Schwartz, who's the head of parapsychology, psychology, physics, and surgery at the University of Arizona, he's got 2 PhDs. I mean, the guy is the man.
Right.
And he wrote the foreword for my book, and he called me up and he goes, the EMS, I love it. That's what it is. And it was like, what an honor. And so scientists that have reviewed the book, now the term EMS, electromagnetic soul, is starting to be used in scientific circles because of this book, which, isn't even on the market yet.
It's amazing. It's really amazing.
It's very humbling.
No, it's amazing. I mean, it's now, not only are you part of, as far as being a psychic medium, a lawyer, being successful in so many other different ways, now your theories now are being shown and shared in the scientific realms now in circles. It's so crazy to me that we have these barriers, as you talked about faith just a second ago. A lot of faith-based people, do you think that creates a barrier for them now, not allowing them to maybe vibrate at a higher frequency? Because like you mentioned in the book, there's a lot of parallels between spirit communication and people that are non-religious and religious, or maybe who do occultish type things according to some of the religious people. Do you think that those those things, that's evil. Is that a block that, the religion maybe sometimes, hinders upon people?
The crux of my work as a medium and as a near-death experience researcher and as a researcher and author has not been to add to the divide between faith and science,
right?
But rather to bridge it. Hence the term electromagnetic soul,
right?
Because there is a delivery system for everything. There is an explanation for everything. And I've heard it said that the ultimate objective of science is the discovery of God. Now that's pretty heavy duty. Now,
yeah, that is.
Say, well, I don't need to know that, but a lot of people, would like that. Right. And so, what I'm doing is explaining how this works, how these things happen. And I like what Nikola Tesla said. In fact, in the background there, I got a Tesla sphere.
Yes,
the plasma ball. Nikola Tesla invented that. I mean, not that one. I mean, that one I bought at the mall, but
to emit free energy, basically. That was a theory, right?
He created that. And Nikola Tesla said that what one man calls God, another calls the laws of physics. So I'm not, I don't believe that faith and science should be mutually exclusive. And I think that as we progress into the 21st century, people of faith will be more open to science, and that people of science will start seeing that there
might be something to those old tales. yeah.
And I think that both of them can learn, from the other.
Gotcha. That's a great concept. Another concept that you bring up in the book is an acronym called RAFT, which I thought was great. RAFT is a really cool concept. Can you talk to us a little bit about RAFT, if you could, Mark?
Yeah. I was trying to figure out, how do you explain to people who are not mediums, how to have or how to interpret and get the most out of a mediumistic experience or a psychic experience. And the thing is, a lot of my colleagues that are mediums, they write these books and do these courses. I'll turn you into a medium. The truth is, not everybody is going to be a medium. Not everybody is a medium. Now, you and I can play tennis. Okay, we can go out on a tennis court and pop a ball around, so we can have the experience of playing tennis. But am I going to turn? Are you going to turn into Roger Federer? Am I going to turn into Djokovic? You know what I'm saying? It's not. With all due respect, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Yeah.
And the same thing is, you can't just turn anybody into a medium. To me, it's like you're either a medium or you're not. But that being said, we can all have the experience. So I was trying to figure out, how do you explain this? And I was beating my head against the wall. Literally. Another one of those, like with the Heisenberg. And so I decided to go for, I had the dreaded writer's block. And so I decided I'm going to go for a walk on the beach. So I get up and I start heading towards the beach. Yeah, because I live near it. And I get this tingly sensation. Okay. When I get this cold chills and tingles, it's like, okay, this is spirits. Okay. Electromagnetic soul is being interfaced with the electromagnetic souls from the Afterlife Frequency. So I do an about face away from the beach and head towards this bike path. And so I'm taking a walk on the bike path, and I know that I have to do this, don't know why. And suddenly I see these two objects shining in the sun. And I walk up to them and I see it's a nickel and a penny. And I hear my mother's voice. Both mom and dad have passed, but I sense when they're around.
Right.
And I hear mom's voice saying, if their head's down, don't touch it. And I started laughing because my mother's family was of Italian descent. All right, your family, Martinez. It seems like
Puerto Rican.
Yeah,
the same thing. Yeah.
We have a superstition for every.
Very superstitious. Yeah.
Oh my God! Don't cross your silverware. Don't walk. And I hear this, and then I hear my dad's voice say, "It's money. Grab it." And I start laughing. So I grab this, and I was like, "Okay." So my parents are here, and I'm looking at the nickel and the penny. I go, 6 cents, and I say, 6 cents. Yeah. Okay, so I'm like, oh my God, they're trying to tell me something. Right. And then I'm getting more tingles, and in my mind's eye fills with an image of my dad standing in the ocean up to his waist, holding this blue canvas raft that he used to have. And now my dad was a Navy SEAL. He was a scuba diver, and he was a swimming instructor. And I remember that canvas raft, and all of a sudden it dawned on me, raft. recognize, accept, feel, trust. And that's what they were trying to tell me. And so I ran back to my house, got my computer on, and the words just flew out of me. And what my parents were doing is instructing me on a 4-step process to help people who, mediums and non-mediums alike, how to recognize the presence of spirits, accept the contact as real, give yourself permission to have it, feel it without fear, and feel first, think later. In other words, this is where people go wrong. They hit the F part, and they start.
They reverse, they reverse the
start, locking it up with it's a grief-induced hallucination, it's a coincidence, all this. Okay, get through that. RAFT, trust the message.
Right.
And it was like, oh my gosh. And then I realized it wasn't just about when you feel the spirits around you. You can apply the RAFT technique to, if you go for a session with a medium like myself, how to interpret the things afterwards. You can use the RAFT technique to make sense of your near-death experience, of deathbed visions, where you're in close proximity to someone you know who is transitioning, and they are seeing spirits of their loved ones coming to them. You can use it to interpret, let's say you have a dream, a direct visitation. And so the RAFT technique has a broad application for all the different types of what I refer to as interdimensional communication.
Right.
Mediumship, near-death experiences, shared death experiences, deathbed visions, visitations, because everything that's happening there is an alignment of the brainwave frequency, of the frequency of our electromagnetic soul with the higher frequency of the afterlife frequency, and you get a frequency alignment, a match. That's what spirit communication is. That's what happens in mediumship. That's what happens in an NDE. That's what happens in a deathbed vision. And it's like it all became very clear to me, and it all can be explained as I do my best to in the afterlife frequency on the basis of science.
Right. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. One question I had for you, Mark, and it was actually regarding one of the chapters that I found very compelling. And it's regarding one of the subjects you just mentioned, NDEs, near-death experiences, of course. A lot of people experience these things more than what more people think. I myself, I've experienced 2 of them in my life.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, I have one at age 5 and one at age 7. So okay. 2 crazy different scenarios, but nonetheless, do you find that people that have been exposed in that way are more sensitive, or maybe their frequency has changed a bit, or they're open a little bit more to communicating with the afterlife or other frequencies?
I do. And excuse me, I do a lot of work with the International Association for Near-Death Studies, and having had an NDE myself when I was 4, I think you hit the nail on the head, Will. Does it make you more sensitive to this? Yes, because when you have an NDE, when you think of it like it's like a rubber band. We're in our world, and the rubber band pulls you right up to the other side dimension, that afterlife frequency, and then you get pulled back.
Right.
See, if you didn't get pulled back, it'd be a death experience, and then that's what
we wouldn't be talking right now.
Well, we would, but not like
but in different ways.
and so when people undergo that experience, it removes the hesitation, the blocks, the fear, and it gives you a much broader understanding and perspective. And it's also not unusual for people who have NDEs to return from the experience with enhanced psychic ability, or what I call spiritual situational awareness.
Yeah, that's another thing I wanted to get into. Yeah, spiritual situational awareness. And this is a concept you brought up in another one of your chapters, and I thought that was really cool because, I mean, this theory could literally help you save your life. I mean, like you mentioned in the book. I mean,
it can. Yeah, spiritual situational awareness. My dad was a Navy SEAL. And everything was about be aware. I mean, that was Dad's mantra: be aware, be aware.
Right.
And he was right. I mean, I remember being a kid, and he taught my brother and I how to swim without making sounds, and how to walk through the woods without making noises. And he taught us all this really cool stealth stuff. And I didn't realize till years later, actually, when he was passing, I didn't know that my dad had been on several covert operations and did all this. I mean, I didn't realize until he was in the last year of his life that my dad was basically Rambo. I mean, it was like, oh my God, you know. And there was reasons that he didn't talk about it much. A lot of it, he said, was very painful. But the thing is, he said that you always have to be aware. And then I started working around police officers when I was a prosecutor, and then in my criminal defense practice. Situational awareness is a very highly valued skill by law enforcement, first responders, and by the military. And what that means is being aware of what's happening around you. You know, you just don't walk into a situation, you know, like if you walk into a bar, you scope out who's around, what's around, you know, walking to your car in a parking lot at night. You know, a lot of people fall prey to criminals simply because they're not paying attention. I saw this post on Facebook recently. It cracked me up. It shows a public park. And this is perfect for your show. Okay. This public park, there's all these benches, and everybody there's on their cell phone. Everybody's looking at their cell phone. And in the background, Bigfoot is walking by. And the caption is, "This is why there have been no recent sightings of Bigfoot." And I'm cracking up. Everyone's so focused on the electronic devices and all that, that we're losing our natural situational awareness. And so in the Afterlife Frequency, I explain about spiritual situational awareness, which encompasses situational awareness, but now expands it beyond what is visible and seen to the energetic fluctuations and the presence of spirits around you. And so spiritual situational awareness, which is enhanced through application of the raft technique, which I explain and teach about in the book, can definitely save your life.
Wow. Amazing. Really amazing. You also talk about, we talked about the near-death experiences, but also shared death experiences. I thought that was way out there. I was like, whoa. I was like, okay, near-death experiences I already knew about, but I was like, shared death experiences. I was like, wow, this is another new concept that it was there, but I really never put it together. Explain, please.
Yeah, shared death experiences. My friend and colleague, Dr. Jeffrey Long, who is the founder and head of NDERF, the Near-Death Experience Research Foundation. Yeah, you know who he is. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he is way cool. And he and I, we were talking, and he refers to shared death experiences as the new frontier in afterlife research. And I think he's absolutely correct about that.
Yeah.
We all know about a near-death experience where somebody dies, they go, leave their body, they go into the light, and then they return. And the big criticism from the cynics is that, well, it's a subjective experience. But what about when more than one person has that experience? And see, now this is beginning to be more and more documented around the world. So let's say there's one person who's in imminent danger of dying, and maybe there's another 2 or more people in imminent danger or threat of dying, and they both come back from the experience and explain the same thing and what they saw and what they encountered. And most of the time they talk about seeing each other as a spiritual entity. All right. Then there's an overlap between SDEs, shared death experience, and DBVs. Get a lot of acronyms in this, deathbed visions.
Yes.
Because and I've been called to the bedside of many dying people because families want me there. And it's a lot of responsibility.
Sure it is.
And it isn't easy, but if I can help with the family, but people who are dying, many times they will start to see the spirits of their loved ones start to come through to greet them, to welcome them when they transition to the other side. And oftentimes when you have someone who is in imminent, danger or imminent process of dying, people around them, healthcare workers, hospice workers, family members, close friends, they start to experience what that person is experiencing. They may see the spirits, they may get the sensation of being lifted up off their feet. They may see a bright white light come out of the person when they physically die. And it's because frequency, okay? The people around them, whether they're mediums or not, they have we all have the same basic physiology. The vibration, the frequency of their electromagnetic souls is being touched by this frequency shift from the person who's transitioning from our world to the other dimension. And that's just a drop in the bucket of how I explain this in the book. Yeah. But shared, and see what's happened, Will, is that a lot of people are afraid to talk about these things. There's a huge social stigma.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, near-death experiences have been reported for centuries.
Right.
In the Bible, the Apostle Paul talks about, I know a man caught up in the third heaven. Mm-hmm. Whether it was in this world or the other world, I do not know. Only God knows.
Only God knows, right?
Let me tell you, we zero in on that one. Hello, Jacob's ladder. I mean, the original stairway to heaven. I also think Charles Dickens.
Right.
Okay. We've all had to, I don't want to say suffer through, but we've all seen versions of A Christmas Carol.
Oh yeah.
Charles Dickens lived in England in the early to mid 19th century, which coincided with the golden age of spiritualism. All right. Okay. That's when psychic phenomena kind of became a thing in Britain. I mean, Queen Victoria was really
table tipping, scrying, all that stuff.
Right? Oh yeah, all that stuff. Yeah. Well, Dickens was a student of psychic research. Okay, Dickens was really into this. And I just gave a lecture on this at the International Association of Near-Death Studies 2021 online conference. And in my PowerPoint presentation, I had this graphic, and I said that it's very possible the Christmas Carol was based on accounts of NDEs and a life review. Because think about it, Ebenezer Scrooge, miserable, narcissistic, greedy, nasty old guy.
Right.
And all of a sudden, the ghost of Christmas past comes through and explains to him or shows him when he used to be a nice guy. When he was young, he had a love interest, he was happy, but then he started becoming egoistic and materialistic. The ghost of Christmas present shows him what a miserable, miserly narcissist he's become. And the ghost of Christmas yet to come shows him a horrific future where he dies and he's mocked and forgotten. And this could be what's called the life review, because people in NDEs, deathbed visions, report, we all heard my life flash before my eyes. And that's more than just a colloquialism.
A saying, right? Right.
People have that, and that's a big component of a near-death experience is the life review. But it gets even juicier than that, because with the ghost of Christmas yet to come, it appears that this could have been an account of what's known as a DNDE, a distressing near-death experience, also known as a hellish NDE. And a hellish NDE happens in about 5, maybe 10% of the cases, but it may be less than that. It doesn't seem to be as common, where people don't, go through the tunnel into the light and have the beautiful experiences like you did and I do. Instead, they go to another realm. And it's not so much that it's hell. It is sort of a cosmic wake-up call.
Purgatory, maybe.
Well, it's a wake-up call,
right?
And and for the benefit of the listeners, this is not in my book. Okay, no. this is part of my lecture series, because I'm not one of these authors. I'm not going to read you my book. I spent 6 years writing this because I want you to enjoy that.
Right.
But what I'm discussing here is what I talk about, like on this show and at the International Association of Near-Death Studies. And there's been a lot of speculation and analysis of Charles Dickens that if he didn't have an NDE, then he certainly spoke to people who did. And from that, he came up with the idea of A Christmas Carol. I mean, that's pretty cool stuff, I think.
That's a pretty fascinating. Hey, you know what? I want to throw another stick into that log if I could. Pun intended, but how about him having a DMT trip? Maybe that was a bad DMT trip. I mean,
who could have been a bad DMT?
Yeah,
DMT
I mean,
is dimethyltryptamine.
Correct.
And dimethyltryptamine is when the pineal gland in your brain, when your pineal gland begins to degrade, it produces a chemical known as dimethyltryptamine, DMT. DMT can also be synthesized. And basically, it's a hallucinogenic. So the critique is that a DMT trip, that an NDE isn't real, that it's actually a side effect of a dying brain, and that it can be artificially recreated through the DMT that they're able to synthesize.
Right.
Well, that's all very fine, well, and good. But if you shock a dead frog's leg, like Luigi Galvani did in I believe it was 1870, Benjamin Franklin had just discovered electricity a decade and a half before. All right. We all know the story about Franklin out in the kite. Thunderstorm with the kite and the lightning struck it and all that. But no, I mean, he was known as Dr. Franklin. I mean, he was a genius.
He was.
He was respected on both sides of the Atlantic. And Luigi Galvani started using electrodes to shock dead frogs, and their legs began to move. And he's the one that discovered and coined the term bioelectricity. And that's when scientists began to realize that our nervous system works on electrical impulses. So if you shock a dead frog and the leg moves, does that make it alive?
Good concept. Yeah, it's a good question.
No.
Right. No,
because artificially recreating something does not make it the genuine experience. So just because you take DMT and it will give you feelings of floating, the sense that it's a spiritual experience, what it doesn't do, it doesn't make you feel like you've transported through a tunnel into the light. It doesn't make you interact with spirits of people that you know who have died. And it doesn't make your consciousness float down the hall in the hospital to see your family crying and then come back and report exactly what you
saw. Yeah. What happened?
There was a woman in Japan who had an NDE, and she was in the hospital, and her parents were there, and she had died on the operating table, and they resuscitated her. And she said, it was such a strange experience because I saw my sister, but that cannot be, for she is alive. And her parents broke down crying and said, actually, she was killed in a car accident last night. Wow. Okay, this woman didn't know that. So why would a DMT trip get her to go see her sister in spirit?
Yeah, that's something a lot more than that, obviously.
But one of the interesting things about Galvani, I think it was in 1817, it gave Mary Shelley the idea to write Frankenstein, where you electrify dead material, and it brought this creature back to life, which turned into a monster. So but the moral of the story here is that artificial recreation of something does not mean it is the genuine experience.
Correct. Yeah, I agree. Another story that you talk about in your book, and it's full of stories. I mean, great stories, and the way piece things together with the theories. It really is amazing how you did it. But there was a story that you spoke about. It was a rainy day in New York, and you were headed to I think it was a library, or it was a reading or something, but you were there with your manager and it was raining, and all of a sudden you felt something and you knew certain things were going to happen the way it did. And then it all came together at the end and it was all affirmed. Can you talk about that story a little bit? I think this story alone is just like, it kind of puts everything all together. Like, to me, spiritual awareness, knowing your situational spiritual awareness. I mean, please.
Yeah, I don't like to give away too many of the surprises in the book, but that story I do recall quite clearly.
Yes.
And things like that have happened to me before, and actually happen all the time. But what it was is I was on my way to a spirit communication event,
right,
and in New York City, and I was with my manager Rocky. She travels with me, and I kept saying, there's people with us, and she goes, Mark, we're in Manhattan, there's people everywhere. I said, no,
the other ones.
Oh, she goes, oh
yeah,
I feel like there's all these children. Okay. And then we got to the venue, and it was weird because when we got to New York City, I was excuse me, I was scheduled, and I went and I'd done a TV show at MSNBC at 30 Rock, and it was really cool because the studio next door, they had just finished doing the taping of Saturday Night Live, so that was cool. I mean, I was like, there and all, and so we're going to this event, and I'm feeling all these kids. And when we got to New York, somebody called Rocky and said, look, can we do this? And we had the time, and they said we booked this room at this bookstore. And so about 24 people come in, and I open up to Frequency, and it was one child after the other. Everybody coming through was children. And then I said, how many people here have lost a child? Everybody in the room raised their hand. What it was a support group for parents who've lost children, and they wanted me to do a spirit communication event. So when I was on my way, walking in the rain in New York City, and it was February and like 40 degrees, and it was really cold. It was moral of the story, go back to New York in the summer. But the spirits, they knew that this was going to happen, and because they move at the speed of light, and so they were with me. And when I got there, they just started coming through in droves. And that's not unusual. I've had situations like that before. In fact, the other day I was doing a reading, and I was getting ready to do the reading, kept hearing Beverly, 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 Beverly. So it was a telephone reading, and the client comes through, and I say, I'm opening up, there's a woman coming through, and I go and I describe how she passed, and I said, Beverly. She, oh my God. My mother's name was Beverly, and the way you described how she died is exactly how she died.
Wow.
Okay. So Beverly wanted to get a message through to her daughter, no matter what. And that's what's really wonderful about spiritual situational awareness, is that spirits are going to get a message through to us one way or another. The question is, are we going to be open to it? Are we listening? That's
raft.
Yeah, that's the raft technique. Exactly.
Yeah. All this is amazing. All this information, really. I mean, because it really kind of puts everything together. Especially for somebody like me, that I've kind of like, I knew all these things, but it's not organized in my head like you have it in this book. You know what I mean? If it makes any kind of sense.
That's what I'm saying. Like near-death experiences, shared-death experience, deathbed visions, mediumship. They've always been. They've been treated like it's a salad bar. As opposed to a stew. Okay, there's a commonality. Well, I never used that one before. That's a good one.
That's a good one. You write that one down.
I'll have a side of the NDE with a little... Sorry, I don't
No. That's great.
but the thing is, they've all been put into separate and distinct categories.
Right.
When the reality is, they're all operating on the same principles of frequency and energy transfer.
one question I had for you, and I thought, it was a good, thought. As us as humans, in our DNA, we have imprinted things in our DNA. Some of us are susceptible to certain things. Some of us are this, some of us are that, whatever the case may be. It's all encoded in our DNA. Do you believe, theoretically, that mediumship is also passed through our DNA?
Well, I'd say it is with my family, without a doubt. I mean, both my mother and my father were mediums. My dad had 3 sisters and 1 brother, and his sister Marjorie was a medium. His mother, Isabel, and his maternal grandmother, Grace, were all mediums. My mother was a medium, and her grandmother, Giovanna, was a medium. And I've been able to track these abilities on both sides of my family back to the 1890s. And there's a number of people in the family that have these abilities. They appear to be what's known as a recessive genetic trait. A recessive trait is one that will skip, like, for example, being right-handed is a dominant genetic trait.
Right.
Okay, 90% of the people in the world are right-handed. Being left-handed is a recessive genetic trait because only 10% of the people in the world are, and it skips a generation or 2. But when you get 2 parents with the same recessive trait, then the likelihood one of their children will inherit that trait increases exponentially, which would be me. And it doesn't just apply to mediumship. I mean, it applies to all sorts of intelligence, athletic prowess, unfortunately, diseases. Like diabetes can be, genetic, certain forms of cancer, and so on and so forth. So yes, it's in our DNA. And anyway, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, because it's a concept that I've been, throwing around too, because again, people that I know that have mediumistic, type of, abilities, they usually do come from, families that have the same thing. So it's a commonality that I do see with a lot of the people that I do know. And it's just, it's amazing that we can, as humans, just like anything else, just like that, we can pass on to our children. Another question that I had for you, Mark, and I thought, this book, it kind of ties everything together, right? And it all talks about energy and frequency. And that's a very important part and aspect about this book, because the way we, are vibrating our frequency allows us to either, communicate or not communicate with certain levels, right? But it can affect our lives. For instance, there was a story, and I don't want to give too much of the book away, but there's stories in the book, and one of the last stories in the book is how we can make our own personal, hell, I guess, as you could say, or, make our own, environment not conducive to ourselves by the frequency that we're generating and how we're feeling. That's a really important concept that I don't think a lot of people talk about.
Yeah, that's true. One thing I've been impressing upon people for years, and one thing that I also have to remind myself of, people think that when you're a medium, somehow grief bounces off of us.
No,
it doesn't. Okay. And part of being a medium is being ultra sensitive. Back in the Victorian era, they called us sensitives. Psychics became, the word psychic sort of, was a 20th century term, but sensitives. And let me tell you, being a sensitive boy was not, the most ideal thing. But my parents recognized this as an early age. And my dad was cool about it because he had this ability too. And, my dad, I remember my dad telling me that a real man is never afraid to say, I love you. And a real man is never afraid to cry for someone he loves who has died. And I know I'm going off on a tangent a bit, but
no, please.
But Will, and one of the reasons I like working with you is because you get it. You're a guy, you're a real guy, but you're also a sensitive and compassionate person.
Yeah.
And guys, we have been. it may be changing now, because I love seeing like millennial dads that cuddle and love their kids, their babies. Millennial dads are good dads. They're changing the diapers and they're right on in there. They don't say, "Oh, female, this is your job." No, it's like, raising a child is a joint effort. Right. But the thing is, traditionally, men have been socialized to suppress their feelings and, for God's sakes, never weep. Never cry. Right. Well, surprise, we have tear ducts, we have feelings, we have a central nervous system, and we have hearts for a reason. Yeah. Also, tears of grief are chemically different than reflex tears. Reflex tears are like, something's irritating your sinuses and you start to tear, like you're chopping up an onion and you start tearing. Those are reflex tears. Right. Tears of grief, medical professionals at I think it's at USC in California and in I believe it's in Minnesota, have found that the tears of grief actually contain the neurotransmitters, in other words, the chemicals that cause depression. Wow. And so when you cry for someone you're grieving, that's the healthy thing to do, because you're getting the chemicals that cause the depression out of your body. Have you ever noticed, like, when you have a real good cry, real heavy cry, you're exhausted afterwards, then somewhat relieved? Surprise, there's a scientific explanation for why that happens. Amazing. And so I try to teach men in grieving that it's okay to cry. That doesn't mean you have to do it in public. Okay, if you need to go somewhere, take your car somewhere, drive, park. Don't do this when you're driving. Have a good cry. Okay, it doesn't make you weak. Right. It's the healthy thing to do. Also, tell the people that you love, "I love you." Okay, especially your son. Yeah. Boys need to hear from their dad that their dad loves them. Yeah. She doesn't know. It's like, people need to know this. Right. So these are very, very healing things that people need to be aware of. Now, getting back to what you're saying about or asking about how we create our own hells, we have to realize that there is nothing that we can do about the fact that a loved one has died. And if I can digress a bit for a story, which is not in the book, okay, I'll tell you how I learned this. One of my best friends, his name was Brad, and Brad and I loved going on eco tours. Okay. We used to go hiking in mountains. We went, we'd go hiking in jungles and stuff. And we went to Costa Rica and we were up in the mountains and we went whitewater rafting. We're roughing it in the mountains and all this. And so we're getting ready to go back to the States. And if we figured, we have been sleeping on the ground, roughing it, doing all this tough stuff. Let's go stay at a luxury hotel. Yeah. So we got a couple rooms at this luxury resort on the Pacific coast at the Manuel Antonio rainforest on the Pacific coast in Costa Rica. Wow. And we got up one morning, because we've been used to getting up at the crack of dawn, and we met at the cafe and we're drinking Costa Rican coffee, which gets you like going like this. I mean, their coffee's freaking unbelievable. Like crack. It definitely could qualify as a controlled substance. Yeah. And we go, let's go for a walk on the beach. Okay, let's do that. So we're walking on the beach, and we're walking and we're talking and we're buzzing on the caffeine and into the on one side of us is the beautiful translucent crystal blue ocean waves crashing on the yellow sand beach, and then on the other side is this beautiful dense dark rainforest. And all of a sudden we realize the hotel, we can't even begin to see it. I mean, we've walked at least 4 miles. Wow. And then I also realized I'm not wearing shoes. Okay. Because I left the hotel, I thought we'd just take a little walk on the beach. And I thought, oh, well, no problem. And all of a sudden, like it does in the tropics, and there's a reason they call it a rainforest, this storm comes off the ocean. All right. And the lightning, boom, right above us. And we're like, oh my God. God, and here we are on this open plain of a beach in a lightning storm. And Brad's like, we got to go for cover in the jungle. And then the rain starts. And it wasn't like, oh, a nice rain. It's a rainforest. It's like a freaking monsoon. No, it was a freaking monsoon. So we run to the jungle. And just as we're about to get in, we hear, and I'm like, whoa, what the heck is that? And we stop, and it's like, and the funny thing is, like, we'd both seen Jurassic Park, which was, in Costa Rica. And I'm like, look, I'm pretty sure they weren't dinosaurs, but whatever was making those sounds, and I said, there's no way we're going in there. Okay. And we're like back out on the beach, and then kaboom, a lightning bolt goes off like right above us.
Oh no.
But right into the jungle. All right, now we're in the dark. We're in the jungle, and I don't have shoes on. Here's a piece of advice. Never go hiking in a Central American rainforest barefoot. Okay, there's thorns, there's poisonous snakes, there's
bullet ants,
there's underbrush, there's like all kind, and these things in the trees above us are like this, and we're like flipping out, and it's misty, and so we're trying this in. But see, we'd been in jungles before, so we're like, calm down, be quiet. Okay. And then we could hear these things moving around. Then they moved off a bit. And then, Brad's like, Mark, he said, we can't go back out there, and we can't get angry at the weather. We just got to deal with this. And I said, let's do it. So we're hiking, and I'm getting scraped up because, I wasn't wearing a shirt either. I was just wearing a pair of swim trunks. I know. And I'm getting all like beat the heck, my feet, I'm stepping on thorns and all this, and we're getting through this, and the path, it was really tight. And then all of a sudden we saw what was moving in the trees above us. They were howler monkeys. Named Howler for good reason, because these things can what it was, they were terrified of the lightning, and they were screaming to each other. But man, and I'd been in a lot of jungles, but I'd never been anywhere where there were howler monkeys. I'd never heard anything like that. I mean, it was like terrifying. And if you ever hear them in full scream mode, it really is. So then we're laughing like, okay, all right, they're monkeys, all right, And so this path led to another path. And then we realized this path was headed north, which is in the direction of the hotel. So it took us a couple hours, like 4 or 5 hours, but eventually we got back,
Wow. What an adventure, Mark.
It was. And you know what it taught me? Well, it taught me that there was nothing that I could do about the rain. And instead of, it looking at it as an invincible negative force, and the jungle, the unknown depths of the jungle is being filled with shadowy monsters. That's like the journey through grief.
Oh, it is.
Nothing you can do about it. And it hurts. And you're never prepared for it. Just like me, I was not prepared to go hiking through a Central American jungle, but I had to. And so while there's nothing you can do about the death of a loved one, just like there was nothing I could do about being stuck in that rainforest, in that predicament, what you can do is change how you react to the situation. You can't go back in time. You can't swoop in. You can't save somebody. A lot of us suffer from survivor's guilt. You got to acknowledge that it happened, but you have to focus on where you are now and where you need to be. And no matter how difficult it is, you have to confront and endure the situation. And I think in this story too, this is not in the book. Okay. This actually is a story for maybe my next book.
Your next one.
But yeah, I mean, that was really, really intense. And that's why I always tell people, you cannot change what has happened. You've got to see, where am I now and how do I get through this? You don't get over the death of a loved one. It is a lifetime journey that you get through. And sometimes it is like being stuck barefoot in a jungle. And then other times you're going to find that path that leads to a bigger path. And eventually you will escape from that jungle of grief.
Well, I think that's a great way of ending it tonight, my friend. I mean, that's a great positive message. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. Listen, afterlifefrequency.com, that's the website. Where else can they find you, Mark? I know you have your own podcast as well, your own show. The Psychic and the Doc as well.
The Psychic and the Doc every Thursday.
Tell me about that.
7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And if people go to my website, afterlifefrequency.com, like Will point out, please sign up for my newsletter so you'll be up to date on when I'm on other shows, and like this one, because I'm hoping to come back. Also, I have a spirit communication online event.
Yes.
Saturday, October 2nd at 10 p.m. Eastern, which will be 9 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Mountain, and 7 p.m. Pacific. And it's being sponsored by Bright Live, BRIGHTLIVE.com. And, people say, well, how can you do that online? And how can you do it on the phone? Because we're all electromagnetic souls, and electromagnetic energy moves at the speed of light. And the online conferences are just as accurate as the in-person events and the one-on-one readings. So I welcome everybody to register. The tickets are going fast on this one. And that's Saturday, October 2nd. I'll be doing an evening of spirit communication on brightlive.com. Also, you can order my book through the afterlifefrequency.com. And my book comes out on audio October 5th. In Kindle and print version October 12th. They're supposed to be all on the same day, but with all the shortages due to COVID, it had to get popped back a week. But I understand Ron Howard's new book also got popped back a week to October 12th.
So you don't feel too bad.
I feel okay.
Well, we'll make sure to put all of the graphics of that event coming up in October. And of course, we'll put up the website on the bottom, afterlifefrequency.com. Of course, you can go order that book. Please jump on it. It's a wonderful book. It's opened my eyes. It's organized in my mind as far as the things that I've experienced in my life. And I think a lot of people that have any kind of questions or maybe going through something, or have had NDEs or SDEs or anything like that, pick up this book. This book, it organizes what you need to be doing perfectly. It's a handbook of how to deal with the afterlife and how to maybe open yourself up and deal with things a lot better as they come along, as we all have things in life come along. But Mark, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast. Thank you so much. You're always a delight, and I can't wait to have you back on here again.
I look forward to it. And for all the listeners, keep tuning in to Dark Fringe Radio.
Thank you, my friend. Hey, listen, have a great night. Thank you so much again, and we'll speak again soon. Okay, my friend? All right, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Mr. Mark Anthony, the Psychic Explorer. And of course, you can check out all his stuff at the afterlifefrequency.com. Make sure you go there and check out all of his books, of course, including Evidence of Eternity and Never Letting Go as well, and his newest book, The Afterlife Frequency. So make sure you go there, afterlifefrequency.com. And of course, check out his symposium that he's doing on October 2nd, which we have posted here below. So nonetheless, Jay, I wanted to thank you so much for coming on this episode of Dark Fringe Radio. Listen, it was a good episode. Next week, I think we have something a little bit different, and I'll be posing that to you later. And I think a lot of the viewers are going to be interested in it. But nonetheless, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode of Dark Fringe Radio. Of course, you can listen to all our stuff at darkfringeradio.com and at Dark Fringe Radio at all of our social media. Of course, Jay, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys again next week.